this video, Dr. Jordan Peterson explains how people experience the world differently based on their perception.
The phenomenologists were interested in the fact that people live within a self-defined perceptual world. That might be one way of thinking about it. And so part of the way to start to conceptualize what that means is to consider for a moment how many things there are in this room that you might look at. And the answer to that is there's an infinite number of them. Depending on how you're going to scale your perceptions, you could spend, if you were a painter, you could spend a month painting that tile, painting a representation of that tile, because it's infinitely complex to get the colors right, to get the patterns right. There's no end to it, really, because to make a representation that was accurate, it would have to be as detailed as the thing itself, and it's crazily detailed. But you don't concentrate on that sort of thing, so you think you're surrounded by an infinite number of potential things to apprehend. But that isn't the world you live in. The world you live in is a very, very constrained subset of those things. And part of the question is then, what's the nature of that constrained subset? That's what you inhabit. That's what makes up your experience. And also, how is it related to the infinitely complex objects that are around you? And that's really what these people were trying to figure out. So you're in this perceptual frame. That's one way of thinking about it. That's the Dasein, by the way. That's the existential frame, or the phenomenological frame, because you can't think about it merely as perception, because it contains also all of the things that you experience subjectively, the emotions and the qualia. That, you know what qualia is an element of being that, say, philosophers or scientists of consciousness have a particularly difficult time with. And it's the quality of pain, which doesn't seem reducible to a set of objective facts, or the quality of color, or the quality of beauty, or the quality of love, or the quality of sorrow. Those things seem irreducible to some degree in and of themselves. Like, what is pain made of? It doesn't even seem like a reasonable question. I mean, you can say, how do you decompose the neurological circuits that are involved in the experience of pain? Fine. But to ask what pain consists of, or is composed of, or what beauty is composed of, or love, seems to be, there's something wrong with that, with the formulation of that question, because those things sort of manifest themselves as raw facts of existence. And so they're constituent elements of your field of experience, your phenomenological frame, or this Dasein, which is the way that Heidegger conceptualized it. That's being there, with you at the center of your realm of experience. So now here's some characteristics of the Dasein, the thing that makes up you. The past and the present are implicit in it. Well, what does that mean? Well, say you have a particular emotional response to something. Maybe it's a negative emotional response. And you see this very frequently with arguments with people. You're having an argument with someone you love, like a family member. That's a good example. So let's say it's the same damn fight you've had with your mother 50 times. Okay, well, that's interesting, because what it means is that all of those 50 times that you fought with your mother are implicit in this fight. So although it's taking place right here and now, the past has shaped it. And if you wanted to investigate the fight completely, you'd have to get to the bottom of that entire train of interactions you'd had with your mother. So it's implicit in your current experience. That's one way of thinking about it. But the future's implicit in it too, because what you're doing right now, it's as if the future's folded up in what you're experiencing right now, and it unfolds as you interact with it. And so, and the reason that it's conditional to some degree on you and your past is because it's your past and you that are determining the actions that you undertake right now that determine how the future is going to unfold around you. Now, not completely, obviously, because you don't have complete control over how things unfold, but you seem to have some ability to determine how things unfold. So one of the ways I've sort of conceptualized the phenomenological viewpoint, this is one way of thinking about it, I believe, is that instead of thinking, and it does mean you have to reconceptualize your idea of objects. Like, an object seems like a unidimensional thing in some sense. It's an object. But most of the things that people interact with aren't like that at all. So, like, here's an example. Let's say you have, let's say you get you're writing the MCAT. You want to go to medical school. You've written the MCAT. You get the envelope in the mail. It tells you what your score is. You hold the envelope. What are you holding? Well, if you think about it from an objective perspective, it's an envelope. Who cares? It's just a little piece of paper, right? It's a rectangle of paper. But that isn't what you're holding at all. That's not what that thing is. That's how you see it, but it's not what it is at all. It's not even, and you know that. Your body knows that because you're shaking. It's like, well, what are you scared of? The envelope? Well, the fact that you see it as an envelope is only an indication of just how narrow your perceptions actually are. Because it's a portal, right? It's a portal through which you're going to walk into one of two worlds, one in which you're in medical school and the other in which you're not. And it also actually contains the past, which is really strange because you think, well, you already know what the past is. It's no, you don't. Whatever that score is in there determines what your past was. And you know that too. You go watch a movie and a bunch of things happen in the movie and then something twisted happens at the end and all of a sudden everything that you thought about the movie was wrong. And a whole new past for the movie pops into being. Well, are you a pre-med student? A valid pre-med student? Well, the score will determine whether or not you were. Very strange. Very strange. Because you think of the past as fixed. You know, and you think of the things that you're interacting with as the things that you see. And they're not. And your body is smarter than that, way smarter than that, because it responds to, you could say, this is sort of a Rogerian perspective, your body is more likely to respond to what the thing actually is than how it is that you see it. So, okay, so the past is implicit in the current being and the future is implicit in the current being. And so the past and the future sort of folded up inside it and you can unfold them and take a look at them. Now, here's the next thing. So, from a classic scientific perspective, there's the world of independently existing objects and there's the world of subjects. And the subject is really in a secondary relationship to the object because the objective world is what's real. But one of the things that the phenomenologists were concerned about that is that, well, you run into this problem again of exactly how it is that you define the object, because just as the envelope with the scores in it can't be reduced to the paper, so the object that you're interacting with only reveals what it is as a consequence of the way that you interact with it. So for example, if you take a complex object like another person, it's like, well, what is it that you are? Well, a huge part of that is going to depend on exactly how I interact with you. Because you could be a raging beast if I interacted with you one way, and you could be a perfectly, cooperative entity that was very pleasant if I interacted with you the other way and another way. And so partly what's happening, you could think of what you're interacting with as something that's really multifaceted, truly multifaceted. And you say, well, you're trying to determine what it is, but the problem is that what it is manifests itself only in accordance with how you behave towards it. And it's actually the case with even objects that you reduce right down to their constituent elements. So you might say, like, let's talk about subatomic particles, hypothetically the most objective thing there is. Well, it turns out that whether they're a wave or a particle depends on the way you set up the experiment. Now, I don't want to make quantum analogies, but what I'm saying is that the object is a very, very complicated thing. And so even defining what it is means that you have to adopt a frame of reference with regards to it, and you undertake only some procedures and not others. So when you're defining an object, even scientifically, you actually don't define the object. What you say is, here's a multidimensional entity. If you approach it in this manner, that's the procedure, right? The methods. If you approach it in this manner, it will manifest that set of traits. But the problem is that there's all sorts of other traits that it could manifest just as well if you treated it a different way. And so the object itself is not something that, it's not something easily reducible to a single set of properties.